What is up, mofos? JJ back here with Holden for, would this be the first true college basketball show, me and you? Because I think
it would be.
We've been dabbling a bit in the NFL, kind of mixing it up with these two. And then my father was on last week. But ultimately, our first college basketball show lands on Valentine's Day, Holden. Ironic, or, what are you thinking?
I think there's no irony whatsoever to this being
zero. Okay.
Why would there be? What is ironic about it, JJ?
Irony on your side. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, what is this? So like you and your lady just watch college basketball and bang all day? Is that why it's so ironic?
I mean, maybe the first one, never really the second one.
What do we got today? We got some good games. I even got a play on the board, so I'm looking forward to this. It's nice to get into college basketball. Good morning, Soccer Thar. How are you?
Yeah, and I think it's time we change the brick wall behind you with some of the elements. Like you have a lot of NFL stuff. I think it's time we get some college basketball stuff behind you.
Really?
Maybe like some Loyola pictures. I know you're a Loyola fan.
Loyola or Loyola?
Loyola. Loyola, that team down in Chicago. I know you like the boys down there. So I think we need to update your background. I mean, I'm in New York City, so mine always going to stay the same. But I think you could use some updating.
Of all the people to tell me about my background, you're the guy with the fucking street in the background. Like, what the hell is that? It has nothing to do with sports. It looks like there's like a toxic waste dump up in the corner. We've got some lights in the background. How did you pick your background, genius?
It's all angles, you see, because I can do a different angle. I could do a different angle, and then it looks like a street sign instead of a highway. But anyway, we do have a nice little slate today. What's up, Eddie and Nate and Soccer Thar? So yeah, we'll talk through a few games, a few of the most popular ones, especially from KenPom. I mean, woof. I mean, before yesterday was a good day, but before yesterday, what an absolute fisting this week's been for me, Holden. I mean, I don't know about you, but woof. Just trying to shake the cobwebs off right now.
Yeah, it's been I wouldn't say it's been an uphill battle for me, but it hasn't been profitable to this point. But now NFL's over, and instead of doing that, now I can, NBA, college basketball, so more time to really dig into it. And that's obviously going to help with the results. I've been pretty light on the college basketball up until this past week. And it's nice to get back in the flow, man. I love it. The one thing the NBA, I can get by without crowds, fans in the stands. This no fans in the stands thing is tough for college basketball. It's probably it's the reason why it's my third favorite sport. I just love, they call it pageant. I hate the word pageantry, but that's what it is. These kids are going crazy. And what are we going to do in the tournament when they're all playing in the same place? Like the underdogs always get these massive boosts from the crowd. Anybody that's there that's not a fan of the higher seeded teams, I don't think we're going to see that this year. So it has been a little bit different. How about the Bradley situation? You wanted to bring that up anyways. I mean, what the hell is going on here? 30 minutes before a game starts, they got 4 of their best players. 30 minutes before the game, they decide to say, "Oh, you're done. Violation. You're out of here." Like, what the hell are we doing? It's challenging.
That's been my problem it was an issue on the college football end. And for the most part, it's kind of been an issue for the last few years. It's just got an extra microscope this year because of all the extra, potential for players to be out, and they wait till the last minute. So yeah, ultimately that's been a little rough. I will say that I briefly mentioned this on Twitter, and I know I've mentioned this in our Discord as well. This year, more than any year that I could remember, and I think this is more related to the non-home crowds or to the non-crowds, teams with big leads late are not taking the air out of the ball. Like, it's just not happening. Mm-mm. So like, when you handicap a game and there's a big line, maybe it's like 11-12, you do kind of like the favorite, but you like the fact that in the under, you figure, the home team who typically plays slow is going to really slow the game down late with 5-6 minutes left. I mean, this team, they're just running up and down the floor. And yeah, sure, some of these games have turned into foul fests late, but you see that all the time in college basketball. This year more than ever, though, teams not putting the brakes on themselves with big leads. It's made a huge impact to totals. You're seeing a bunch of totals higher than you normally would, especially this time of the year in conference play, this deep into conference play. I think it's more or less the sports books are making adjustments to it. So a lot of lines you look at that you might be more familiar with seeing KenPom lines. These lines are all basically 3, 4, sometimes even 5 or 6 numbers padded on these totals, but they have to because the style just hasn't been the same. And again, the only thing I could attribute it to is the lack of home crowds. because otherwise it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But these days, especially this last 2-3 weeks, betting unders has not been a fun time in any.
And you're going back to the well. That's the whole thing. And I'm tailing you on the one too. And that number got steamed up, which is kind of nice. But yeah, it's tough. And I'll just say this: the coaching is different in college from the NBA. It's a lot more predictable what the coach is going to do in the NBA. But I knew that this was going to be an extra special challenge this year when I saw Iowa down by like 13 points with 3 minutes left, and McCaffrey decides not to foul. They shot 1 3-pointer in the last 3 minutes. And they're still trying to win because they're fouling. But it's like, what are these guys doing? What are they doing? And thank God this is not turned into the NBA, though, where it's only 3-point shots and layups and dunks. We haven't seen that yet. But some of these coaches, even the well-respected ones, you're just going, what are you doing? Why are you handling this situation like this? So, again, it's been challenging, but I think we've got a path to getting back on track here. So I'm excited about doing this show.
Yeah, same here. So I guess we could probably dive right in. Now, this Michigan-Wisconsin play, now I know I don't really have a play that I like in this game myself. I mean, we could talk through it, though. But
do you think – let me ask you something real quick. Do you think prostitutes are busy on Valentine's Day?
I would say they're no busier than they are on like a random Tuesday.
Really? You don't think guys are looking for love in all the wrong places, you know?
I mean, so what? You think somebody's paying like a good-looking prostitute to go out with? Because ultimately, if it's Valentine's Day, what's the difference? I mean, you paying them to go out so you look better.
A girlfriend experience, just so you know, guys that are soft individuals, betas, correct? That want the Valentine's Day experience would do that. French kiss a hooker.
I'd argue, Holden. I'd argue, and this is I know only one person's perspective.
Yeah,
I'd argue that there's 2 betas on this show right now. I mean, what do you think?
Not anymore. I'm back to being an alpha, dude.
Let me tell you something. That is not a light switch, Holden. Okay.
No, it is. It is. You take back your wife for a whole bunch of years, and then you become single again. You were an alpha before, then you became a bitch. Now I'm back, baby. That's it. Forget it. Yeah, you can call yourself a beta. I'm an alpha again.
I tell you what, poor Eddie's listening to this with his wife in the background, and hears you ask my opinion on prostitutes' busyness of their schedules on Valentine's Day.
Hey, it was that and rib jobs. We were picking one of the two. I figured Uncle T didn't want to talk about that on our podcast. I figured this would be a great day to do it, but more toward the end of the show and not at the beginning. I don't want to completely scare everybody away, but you millennial women are nuts. Yeah, Eddie. I don't know how old your wife is, but if she's a millennial, man, they're crazy. They're doing weird shit. So anyways, you want to talk some college basketball today. What's up?
Yeah, so the Wisconsin-Michigan game, you had a spot you kind of liked in this one, right?
I do have a spot I like, and I wonder what you think about this. So I got to read my notes because I don't remember a lot of things anymore. But so we got a 2-week stoppage of play for Michigan. Terrific team. But they haven't played in 2 weeks. Plus, they couldn't practice for a little bit with the COVID. And it was a small sample. It was like 8 it was an odd number of things. But here, the teams that I was looking at, 42% win percentage when you are coming off these long buys is what I'll call them. These teams struggle, especially in the first half. So 58% of the time they're losing. January 22nd, last game for Michigan. And I just think you look at this in the first half. You can get Wisconsin on the money line, I think, for minus 110, maybe 115. But I'm just going to go Wisconsin minus a half a point at plus money. I think I got it 105 or 110 on BetMGM. How is Michigan just going to come out in the first 20 minutes and mow down Wisconsin? There's also a Wisconsin team, if you remember, they got beat by like 150 points. They were down by 40 at one point in that first game against Michigan. This is not a bad Wisconsin team. They play defense. So I can look at the under. I just like Wisconsin here in the first half, JJ. That's my look.
Yeah, I can't mind that at all. I will tell you this, that I'm normally big into looking at overreactions when two teams play one another at different parts of the year and one team blows the other out in a game where two teams are equal. And what I mean by that is, like, if a team wins by like 5 or 10 points or 12, 15 points, okay, fine. Maybe they just caught a bad run and then it was hard to get over it. When a team loses by like 25, you start to worry about, is there just systematically a mismatch offense and defense, because it's a big number to lose by. It's not like your typical 10-15 late game team pulls away late. So that's a little bit worrisome for me. I get the perspective of Michigan off the long layoff. I will say though, let's hypothetically say Michigan doesn't have that long layoff. I mean, you could argue this is like a top 2 team in the country. I mean, they have one bad loss all year, and it's against Minnesota, a team who I'd argue is the best home team in the Big Ten, like the team that like has the worst home road splits in all of the Big Ten, one of the worst home road splits in all of the country. So how bad is that loss? I don't know. But ultimately, this is a team that's got a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense as per KenPom. Just not something you typically see. I mean, one of the best effective field goal shooting teams, one of the best effective shooting field goal defenses. Now, maybe that attributes to the fact that why Wisconsin struggled the first time. This game's in their gym, though. Probably you figured go a little differently. But I do like the angle that if you're going to take them for the first half, because as the numbers you said, some of these teams come out cold after a long layoff.
Yeah, and I think Michigan is to me clearly the third best team in college basketball. You got Gonzaga not too far behind Baylor, and then kind of a chasm. And then I've got Michigan there. The last time I saw, I think Iowa's still like top 5 in KenPom, and that I don't get. That team's getting destroyed. They're not going very far in the tournament. But Wisconsin, they're 12th in KenPom. Again, it might be more of a narrative bet or just a correlation bet. Teams that have struggled off this long layoff, I don't see them coming out sharp, man. Especially lack of practice time, 2-week layoff. I like Wisconsin here. Yeah, I can't mind it. I told you that my opinion was a little indifferent on this game. Not that I like or dislike your pick at all. I mean, ultimately, the first half makes a lot of sense. I personally don't like to target these teams that come back off these layoffs. I just feel like it's a little more added variance. But the numbers you bring up make sense for why to at least fade them in the first half, and then hope you get a little different first half from Wisconsin versus the last game. Wisconsin, is going to try to slow this game down. Not that Michigan's really going to try to speed it up, but in the half-court defense, you would think you would see two. I mean, ultimately, you're looking at 2 top 10 defenses going head-to-head, so that's why the under does kind of make sense. But again, you're also looking at 2 very efficient offenses. So, interested to see how this game plays out this time around and if it can be a little closer. And like I said, for your sake, I like the angle with Wisconsin to grab the first half. Okay, let's do it, man. That's my one pick. I know you got a couple of thoughts too, and I want to piggyback on those. So let's do it. What did you just walk into?
What did you get that line at for Wisconsin? -1?
Minus a half. Yeah, minus a half, which is kind of good, right? That's good. You can take money line if you want to push, but I mean, just give me the one.
It's not bad.
No, it's better than 1. It's better than 1, right? What did you just walk into? What did you just join, David? You joined a fine betting show that runs every Sunday at noon Eastern time. That's what you did. If you're referencing the ladies of the night conversation, that's what you joined. Well, now you know, and you got my best bet of the day. So good luck with that.
You never really know. It's very hard to predict when the show's going to go off the rails, but at some point, it finds its way back on the track.
People always say that you're the wild card, right? But I'm the one with ADD and sex on my mind all the time. So really, you are the credible source on this show, and I'm the jackass. So and we're wearing the same shirt. We're the Bobbsey twins again. Usually, when I'm on the sports side, I do the bets. Usually, when I'm on the bet side, I do the sports shirt. But today, it's the bet side.
I tell you what,
I just wanted to look sexy.
Nothing says cuckold like me and you both wearing this same shirt on the show.
I must say I'm not into the cuckold thing. I don't understand it. A lot of women out there say they're looking for a third. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm sorry, JJ.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we needed the graphic detail on your thought process on the word cuckold. I was just saying that we just look like 2 cucks with these shirts on.
Yeah, I don't agree with that whatsoever. And if you're going to bring up cuckold, I'm going to think that I have to bang your woman in front of you, and I think it's the absolutely horrible thing. So,
so we got a few questions if we wanted to get to them before we jump.
Sure, let's do it. What else we got? It doesn't just have to be college basketball.
So Robert Kahn thinks Bubba Wallace is going to win the Daytona 500. Definitely possible. I mean, his odds got to be pretty big, no?
I don't know shit about car racing, man. I'm sorry. If you're looking for an inside edge here, Denny Hamlin, I think, is the guy that everybody's on. I watched, who was it? Hoop was on with the NASCAR guys on the Run Pure Sports side, and they were talking about it, and Hamlin's name came up a lot. I was just there to support him. Sometimes I watch you guys, I just put you on the background so you get an extra view. I like you so much.
Thank you. So I can't speak too much on Bubba Wallace, but I know that last year he was definitely a typical top 20 at best racer.
Mm-hmm.
Nice pick. Thoughts in the same game today. So Kenny, Loyola Chicago, we're going to get to right after this. Right after we talk Minnesota. Actually, I guess Loyola was the first game, so we could talk that one first. I guess let's just dive right into it.
There's other questions. Is that it? Do you want to just move on from there? Let's do it. Loyola and Drake.
Yeah. So yesterday, some of you guys might know I was on Loyola minus the 4. Drake was dealing with their best player being out. Looks like he'll be out again today. Shaquan Hemphill. Now, my big thing coming into this game was the fact that Drake's had a great year, and you start wondering, well, what was so different this year than last? Well, they did get Darnell Brody, the Seton Hall transfer, who's been you might look at his numbers and you might be like, oh, well, his numbers are 7-7. But he's a big staple for them inside, specifically on the defensive end. Problem is he gets a little too handsy, and Loyola was almost assuredly going to put him into foul trouble. And they did. He was basically in foul trouble the whole game. And then without Hemphill, his team on the glass just isn't that good. Now, Loyola played a very average at best first half, and then before running away with the second half.
Loyola?
You know what it is? I think I'm saying it too fast.
Loyola.
Aren't
you Catholic or raised Catholic or something? Isn't that a Catholic school? You should be able to say this very easily.
Loyola.
There you go. You just did it. The rest of the time you go, la.
I've been saying it good. I'm just saying it a little fast.
You have not been saying it good. That's why I called it timeout.
You need to slow down the speed that you're listening to me on, and then it'll all translate.
So what do we got here, buddy? What do we got? Loyola's been shooting pretty well too the last 5 games. You see this? 57.8%. Defensively stepping up, 52.6 points per game over that last 5.
Yeah, this is basically a top 20 offense as per Kemba. This team is basically a poor man's UVA in terms of what they do. They're very good defensively. They play very slow. They're very efficient offensively on a per possession basis. They have good senior leadership. And they have a good big man who leads them in multiple categories. Probably going to wind up being the conference player of the year in Cameron Krutwig. But ultimately, he did pretty well yesterday against Brody. Did a good job putting him into foul trouble. You'd expect something similar today. The problem is, like I said, if people that want to bet Drake do realize his team's down their best player. Could they hang around? They could. I felt like I watched that entire game yesterday. They made a lot of tough first half shots that in the second half just stopped falling for them. Now will that be the case again today? I don't know. It's pretty clear that Loyola. Pretty clear that they're a better team. They basically pronounced that yesterday for sure. Now, how motivated are they for this game? I do think that they want to put themselves in a situation where they get an automatic bid. So they're going to keep trying to win games regardless if they win or lose their conference championship. So it's not like they're not going to be motivated, but you'd figure Drake, maybe a little more continuity, playing a full game without their best player, maybe comes out a little better today, a little more efficient. But again, they were forced into a lot of tough shots yesterday. I know the number is better, so if you're going to bet Loyola, do realize you're getting the worst of it because yesterday the number it actually opened 3, it moved to 4, moved even to 5 before some steam came back the other way on game day. But now you're looking at 5.5. Is there really value? I wouldn't say that myself. So this is not a spot I like. I liked it yesterday. If you're talking a spot, maybe I like maybe a lean in favor of the under, just because. Both these teams are going to play slow. Drake's going to struggle to score, and Loyola shot ridiculous from the field yesterday. And they made a lot of tough shots. So that would be my lean, but I don't love it by any means. That's why I'm not betting it.
Yeah, and Drock was in foul trouble yesterday, as Air Watto said. I don't know how much that has to do with anything. I think, and you know what I did this morning? Because I was thinking about this yesterday, and on FanDuel last night, Loyola was not even on the futures to make the Final Four. Open up points bet this morning, found about plus 2,000 just to make the Final Four. Like at that, when you're getting 20-1 on a team that is talented, that has recently been to the Final Four, that's a well-coached team, I think it was worth it. So that's not a best bet. It's something that I did bet, though.
I agree. I think that one of the few teams that would almost be a sure thing loss for them would be if they draw Baylor in their conference on the way to the Final Four. Baylor, that team is just such a complete bunch. But anyway, so Bobby asks us if we can recap our Super Bowl picks last week. So I mentioned on my video this week, Bobby, if you saw, that I absolutely got my asshole teared open on the Super Bowl. So Holden, I know that you did as well.
I did.
So you want to give?
Why did I get my asshole torn open?
You want to give the graphic description, or?
I did well. What are you talking about? Let me tell you what happened. This is going to be a funny story, and I'll tell you why I did well. So my parents love Tom Brady. They lived in Boston for like 18 years. They moved down to Florida. I'm like, hey, can you do us a favor? I'm like, what? They go, can you put $1,000 bet down for the Bucks? And I said, do you want the money line or -3? My dad doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's like, both. I said, okay, I'll give you 5 on this. I'll give you 4 on the other one. And then I'm going to bet Gronkowski touchdown. Okay. So basically the only reason why I won money was because I tailed my dad, who doesn't know shit about betting, but I did. I had a good week. And then, and listen, my Darrell Williams thing that I gave out, complete debacle, didn't even get the touches, horrible game script. But the Leonard Fournette bet that I gave out last week on the show completely hit, over 23.5 receiving yards. So it was a mixed bag. Ultimately, I ended up winning, but I lucked into it. I'll take the luck. But yeah, I tailed my dad, who doesn't know shit about football. No,
it's awesome. I mean, look, however the wins come, it doesn't even matter.
No, it doesn't. You got fried, huh? In the Super Bowl? No bueno. Did you have the Chiefs?
I mean, I only made 3 bets and I went 0-3, but like for me, that's and granted I only made 3 bets, but that was the first winless Super Bowl for me, I think in like 5 or 6 years, where I didn't cash a bet. But yeah, I mean, ultimately you par for the course, maybe it was due for it. But I do think that looking back, I definitely underplayed the offensive line issues for KC. I mean, what a disaster the offensive line was. So yeah, ultimately that scramble, I figured Andy Reid would, with 2 weeks to prepare, would find a way to shuffle that around to make it viable. But you could tell from early on in the game that was going to be a problem all game long. That wasn't going to magically fix itself. So yeah.
No. Yeah, it wasn't. Any Tyreek Hill prop you had that I had went to hell. The Mahomes rushing prop went over. That was nice to see, and that was a correlation with the offensive line. But, I mean, ultimately, if we just look at volume of bets, I got my ass kicked. But, again, I got lucky in the end.
Winners win, Holden. Winners win.
Yeah, lucky people win sometimes, too. Lucky people win sometimes, too.
Okay, so Minnesota, Maryland is the other big game. I wanted to really touch on 3 of the bigger games today. Now I think that Maryland's 2.5 now, because I think it moved a bit.
Okay, I'll go look at the live line right now, because that game's coming up pretty soon, isn't it? Or is that a night game? That's a night game. That's 7:00. Yeah, -3 everywhere. Maryland.
It's steamed all the way to 3. So I mean, I definitely can't like it at 3.
No.
But another game. So here's the thing for me, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Holden. I've, for the most part this season, avoided the Big Ten entirely. I just like this conference is very home road driven. A lot of teams that play good defense, but are very efficient offensively, because there's a lot of like good teams in the Big Ten. It's not like your typical year where you got like 2 or 3 good teams and then like 2 or 3 really good teams, and like there's a lot of parity elsewhere. I mean, you look at this team's got Michigan 4, Illinois 5. Minnesota 35, Purdue 22, Ohio State 6, Penn State 30. I mean, this team, Indiana, did I ever say Indiana at 29? I mean, this team, Wisconsin's at 12. I mean, this team's got just littered with teams inside the top 30. So, you'd figure the Big Ten could make some noise in the tournament, potentially, much more than like a conference like the Big East, where a team like Nova is the only team that has any relevance. But ultimately, it's just been a tough conference. I don't typically live in the Big Ten anyway. Making a lot of wagers, but this year in particular, I have not made a lot of bets specific to this conference. Now, this game here, as I mentioned before, I mean, Minnesota, just a true home road team in every facet, and they also got beat by Maryland at home anyway. But this team has is it 0 road wins, Minnesota? Yeah, I mean 0.
Yeah, they're not good. Aren't they 0-6? Is what it is, and they've lost by 12 or more in 5 of those 6. They get their asses kicked on the road.
Yeah. So, and then Maryland, much like a lot of these other teams. I mean, I'll tell you what, though, from a home road splits end, Maryland's kind of in the middle. They're not your typical Big Ten team this year. I mean, they've played somewhat decent on the road, somewhat decent at home. They don't have like egregious splits. But overall, looking to break this down. And Minnesota is going to try to aim to speed this game up, while Maryland's definitely going to slow this game down. Both teams very comparable in what they do, what they're going to try to do. We saw from the first time these two played, though, that Maryland held a pretty decent advantage in multiple categories, specifically, of course, shooting the basketball. You could tell that probably just based on the score alone. But Minnesota really struggled to get good looks. I mean, it was one of the worst shooting performances of the season. They ended the game with 49 points, which might have been their lowest output this year. So again, for me, I'd argue the under again. But these days, these totals that start at the 130s and go up, it is tough to warrant betting unders with these totals. Now, I found some success betting unders in the 120 to 126 area or neighborhood. But once you get into that 130 area, it just seems like a lot of these games have gone over. And a lot of it has to do with what I believe to be late in games, teams are not running clock like they used to. And the only thing I could attribute to that is, of course, the crowd or the lack thereof. It
really is bizarre. I don't get it. We can say it's the crowd. It doesn't make sense. Nothing is making sense this year. Like if you're betting NBA, and normally it has been something where you need to hang out and stick around for injury news just in case you need to hedge or something. But that's been bananas. The football was bananas this year. We had games. It's just been a very challenging year. I also think, though, this is kind of a chance for people that do bet, that know what they're doing, that have people around them, people that watch the show. You're following JJ. You can also get an advantage there, though. There's different ways to look at it. And if you were on the Maryland side early at -1, great. We're taking a look at this a little bit later. Good fade. But yeah, it's just been so unpredictable.
Yeah. No, I can't disagree. Do you have any look in this Big Ten? I know you've been betting the Big Ten a little bit. Do you have any look in this game?
No, I don't, to be perfectly honest with you, at 3 now. I think if this thing was at 1, I don't even know about 2. It's going to be close. They just beat Minnesota. I think it was 3 weeks ago. Then they beat they beat Minnesota. And I think this is almost like I don't want to say a must win, but it's a damn close to a must win for Maryland. There's a lot riding on this for this team to get into the tournament. So I guess I would lean Maryland, but I just don't like the line where it is anymore.
Yeah, no, I can't blame you. So now there's a few other mid-majors games that I wanted to touch on. And then I guess we could try to take a few more questions if people have them. But so, for instance, my best bet for this video. So Bradley goes up against Missouri State here. And Bradley, as you remember yesterday, Holden, as you briefly mentioned, Elijah Childs, Terry Nolan, Jay Sean Henry, and Danya Kingsby, specifically the first 3 I mentioned, are all their 3 leading scorers, the only people on Bradley that score over double digits. So that's why this line's inflated to about 10.5. But what I will say is I really like Bradley's team total under. So it's 61.5 with light vig -107. This is a team that scored 58 yesterday. Was it 58 yesterday? Yes. So they scored 58 yesterday. And I watched some of that game. And they had some of these reserves making some tough shots. And look, kudos to them. They ended up shooting about 53% from inside the arc. They shot very poorly from beyond the arc, but you would figure that considering they were losing some of their premier scorers. But the pace played very slow. They shot 90% from the free throw line. They didn't turn the ball over near as much as I figured they would. To me, it was just like offensively, they played a better game than I would have expected, and they still only scored 58. Now, as far as why I don't like Missouri State, first of all, I don't like laying double digits in college basketball. I rarely ever do it. And number 2, you're really trying to figure out exactly how much these players are worth. Maybe these players combined are worth 15, 16 points. In that case, there'd be a lot of value to still on Missouri State. But overall, I just think that it makes more sense for Bradley to go under their team total. Missouri State's not a team that plays fast. I mean, they don't play for this conference. They definitely don't play slow compared to other teams in it. But they by no means play fast, and you could tell this by the possessions of the game total that were yesterday. Now, Missouri State shot really well from the field, and they might do that again with all these reserves coming in for Bradley. But I really like that team total under for Bradley at 61.5. I know it's a light number, but believe it or not, Bradley hasn't gone over this number 5 times of their last 10 games. 4 of those games, they, of course, had all their studs. They didn't have him yesterday, but overall, like I said, I think that this is a spot where it just makes a lot of sense to go back to the well with this team going under their team total.
Yeah, I like it. I don't. Do we overreact, or did I overreact to those four guys because it was 30 minutes before, and now they got some time to kind of adjust? But no, you laid out a nice argument there. I'm going to shut my own argument down.
I mean, look, ultimately, if they shoot well enough, I mean, they'll go over that number. I mean, they're not going to have to shoot that well. They'd probably, I mean, realistically, based on how the game looked yesterday, they'd probably have to shoot about 47% as a team to go over that number. And that's not a number they shoot. I'm trying to look at their current numbers. I mean, their effective field goal percentage is nearly 50%, but that's not a true indication of their team shooting. But they shoot basically about that with their starters, so they'd have to shoot that without their starters. Ultimately, that's why I like it under.
Okay, let's do it, man. I'll hit that. There was that, and I don't want to give away the picks. You got to be a subscriber, but there was the pick in the USF Tulane game that I really liked that you had up there after doing some research. And then, that total moved big time. Yeah.
So the American Conference, the American Athletic is a lot of teams play very similar in that, like teams like Tulane, obviously USF, Tulsa, but then there's teams like Cincinnati, Temple, Central Florida, which don't exactly play at the similar tempos and similar styles. But ultimately, like for instance, like take the UCF Cincinnati game, because I know that game's going to start in like 30 minutes. Let me see. This total got steamed down, I think. Open. Central Florida, Cincinnati.
Yeah, let me go find this.
So it got steamed down a little bit. And I think because I looked at that game, I think it was the first time they played. It wasn't. Did they play before?
You're looking at which game? Which?
I would shift.
Cincinnati, right?
I was shifting over to Cincinnati UCF.
That's off the board. I don't even see it on the board anymore.
You should just refresh. It should be there.
All right. Very good.
So, a lot of these teams play very similar in terms of their pace, like Wichita, SMU, Temple, UCF. A lot of these teams play in Cincinnati. Their pace is tempo is pretty similar. A lot of these teams in this conference play good defense. They don't play good offense. But the pace of this game, I'd expect Cincinnati to really try to speed this game up. But the problem is that these are just two offenses that are rather inefficient. They're much better defensively. So I understand why this total would have seen some steam south. But this pace could play out pretty quick. It played pretty quick the first time these two played. So it definitely could play quick again. But ultimately, in this conference, hold on one second. So like I was saying, in relation to the South Florida game, so there's just teams that tend to play slower. Teams like Temple, Tulane, now not so much East Carolina, and Houston's just. Well, you know what? Let's take a sidestep for a second. What do you think of Houston's chances to win it all this year, Holden?
I'm very close-minded on this. I think there's two teams. It's Baylor and it's Gonzaga, and that's it. So, not great.
Yeah, so Gonzaga to me is like the team every year that wipes out their conference and then they get into the big dance, and it's like they play one good team, and they usually sweat a bit, and then that ends up being their demise. Like I'm surprised, Holden, the year they had Sabonis. I'm surprised they didn't win that year.
See, I think that's unfair, is all I'll say. Because they have gotten deep. I mean, they had an Elite Eight back in 2018. The last time we had that, they were the runner-up in 2016. They've either been so here we go. We got 2 Elite Eights, 2 Sweet 16s, and an overall runner-up in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tournaments. So I think the narrative that they suck in the tournament is wrong, personally.
I can't disagree. I guess what I'm getting at is they're a team that's always ranked basically all year long in the top 3. Mm-hmm. Let's say they were a mid-major. Let's say they were a major program, a Power 5 conference team that was always in the top 3 and consistently did not win one national championship.
Kansas. I mean, we got one 12 years ago, but since then that's Kansas every year, number 1 seed. They make it to the Final Four once every 5 years or so.
And I think the problem for me with this year more than ever with Gonzaga is I'd argue there's like 7 or 8 teams that could give them a hard time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, so
Houston's one of them.
So for one thing, yeah, Houston's definitely going to be a team that should give them a hard time. A team that plays very good offense, very good defense.
Okay.
On a per possession basis, they'll have no problem running with Gonzaga if they want to run. Baylor does everything Gonzaga does, just better. Now, I'd argue, so this is where I'm probably a little biased. I'd argue a team like Ohio State and a team like Michigan could definitely give Gonzaga trouble. Again, teams that do both really well, teams that can slow the game down if needed, teams that can really take the air out of the ball against a team like Gonzaga, like a team even like UVA. Like UVA is not having a great year per their standards, but they should be able to win their conference tournament. They should be able to come out of their conference on top. And again, a team that's still efficient on offense, just plays the game really slow. These are teams that have given Gonzaga fits over the years. So I just think overall, not to say Gonzaga's overrated, because I mean, ultimately, I guess you can make that argument most years for Gonzaga, but I think this year there's a lot more talent at the top. Like even like a team like Illinois, like a team that's just long, that can really slow the game down and is just really good offensively, and really tough on defense. I just think you have a lot of those similar teams this year that would give a team like Gonzaga fits.
Okay. And listen, once we get into the tournament and everything's right now, it's big macro picture. Once we get micro, maybe there's a matchup there. But just from what I've seen from Gonzaga, Suggs to me, I personally think he's going to be the best NBA player in college basketball this year. Like the guy. He's so young. He's so talented. He'll probably be in the league 2 years and he'll get his jump shot down. He does everything else so beautifully. He's just he's a mismatch. He's a matchup nightmare. And that's just one of their stud players. I mean, you go up and down. He's not even the guy that gets talked about the most.
Yeah.
So we've seen number one seeds no matter what team it is. Kansas, Kentucky, Duke. I mean, Duke lost to a 15 seed. So we see it all the time. So I think once we get a little bit closer, once we get the matchups, but even Baylor, I think, is a step down. It's like Gonzaga and then Baylor and then everyone else is like off the screen. I
think that the big issue with Gonzaga is, of course, their schedule. When you compare it to compare their schedule, don't get me wrong, they have some good wins, but when you compare their schedule to these other Power 5 teams, I mean, who has really Gonzaga played this year? I mean, they beat Virginia and they beat Iowa. I mean, outside of that,
Kansas stinks though. So,
I mean,
they did, and
a lot of their wins were early in the year, which, not to say there's anything against that. It's just that some of these better teams, it takes them 10, 15 games to fully develop and get that continuity. A lot of their big wins were in the first 2 weeks of the season, or at least the first month of the season.
Yeah.
And then they go into conference play and then they don't really play anybody. But look, you can't look past what they've done. They've blown out every team basically in their conference, but they basically do this every year. So that's my biggest problem with Gonzaga going into the dance every year is you don't really know how good they actually are. And then usually you can usually get a good read on them by that second round when they play the 8 seed. They'll be a 1 seed. So when they play the 8 or the 9 seed, and there is where you usually get a good read on truly how good they are. But there's going to be a lot of good 8-9 seeds in this tournament this year. Could give them a little headache.
Listen, and we go into the tournament. If you think that there's no way this team's getting upset, you're crazy. Like every team.
Oh yeah,
every team can. But you can roll out Kispert and you can roll out Suggs and Watts. Not Watts. Watts. What am I doing? But yeah, I mean, they're just so deep. They're just so talented. I've seen them too much. The schedule fine, but they'll get it tuned up. They'll get tuned up here for the tournament, and they're just better than everybody. And it's not even close. I really don't think so.
That Baylor team, though, to me, is just a better version when Virginia won the championship 2 years ago.
Because defensively,
they do it all. I mean, you look at it. I mean, the KenPom has them the number 3 ranked offense, the number 3 ranked defense. Now I get it; they're undefeated, so it's like, oh wow, really, really going out on a limb there. But I mean, this team plays in a good conference, and they're the best 3-point shooting team in the country. They just have sharpshooters all over the court, and they play very good defense, and they're well coached. This team would have made a decent run last year, had it not gotten canceled. So, but either way, it should be a fun year because I do think you have a lot of talented teams this year. Not so much your typical top-heavy tournament, but interested to see how these games kind of play out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then one more game I wanted to talk about briefly. So Valpo plays Northern Iowa today. And I know that the line has been taken down a bit. Northern Iowa was a fairly popular play yesterday. They get rolled by Valpo. One thing I'll mention is that these are two teams of two different tales if you will, in terms of first half and second half. Valpo is a tremendous first half team. Despite losing like 4 of their last 7, they've led in like 5 of those 7 games at halftime before kind of giving up games in the second half. Northern Iowa is basically the exact opposite. They tend to come out very slow, and they lose a lot of games early in the first half before really getting together and then playing better in the second half down the stretch. I also think that there's this bias in favor of Northern Iowa. People think like because it's Northern Iowa and this team usually runs that conference, they just don't have the talent this year. It's a younger team. They lost a lot of continuity on both on that offense and of course defense with certain players. So I think people see the Northern Iowa name and they just kind of think, oh, this team's better than how they've looked. But like if you've watched them play, they're really just not a good team this year. Either way, Valpo in the first half is a decent look. Again, if you look at both their numbers, first halves, Northern Iowa is a team that struggles early in games, and Valpo plays really well. You can catch some points with Valpo in the first half.
All right. Very good. Like it. So you got 3 plays today.
Yeah. And I'm probably going to target some live spots as well because ultimately I have some other numbers in mind that I like to wait until halftime to target if they fall into that range.
All right. Very good. I like that. I like the 3 plays. You laid them out very good. Definitely tailed. I already tailed one. I'm going to look into that Bradley a little bit. Isn't that what it is? Bradley a little bit more? Yeah, under 62, but that sounds kind of nice too. All right. Anything else you want to get to?
Do we have any wrap-ups? Otherwise, no.
Like I said, if you want to hear my spiel on millennial women, do you have the chat up right now?
Chat's up.
So go listen. Just say yes or no right now. Do you want to hear my tales about millennial women and something that they do that I'd never encountered before with women that are not? So if you want to hear the story, let's see 5 yeses in the next minute. If you don't, I won't tell the story. I'll keep it to myself. And it was the story that I told JJ. So it's all good.
If you don't tell the chat to eat your ass, Holden.
Yeah, eat my ass, bastards.
Anthony Morris said
yes.
Nah.
Yeah. Well, this is why I save it for the end of the story. For the end of the show. I don't want to scare people off. This is an end of the show story, and I think we can make it a bit if people say yes. So let's see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. Let's do it. No, we got 5. All right, let's go. So did you see 5?
I see 4.
Oh.
No, Anthony. I think Anthony Morrison said just kidding. So maybe he didn't mean no. I don't know. This is confusing. I would say just fire away.
All right, so here's the deal. So as some of you know, I just look young for my age. I'm 46 years old. I was married for a long time, and I always said to myself, and by the way, F and Bob, I know you're listening to this story right now, despite the fact that you said no. So and she was a borderline millennial. She was like 8. She's 8 years younger than me, so I really didn't get the whole full millennial experience. I don't know what this has to do, but I'll tell you this. I have probably, let's see here. This is not a humble brag or anything. I'd say 7 or 8 millennial women since my divorce, which was middle of last year. They all eat ass. All of them. Like every single one of them. It's amazing. And, you're in there getting down to business. You looking for your girl. And they're all just like, I want to eat your ass. And if we're talking 7, I'd say 4 of them have done that. And it was part of the whole buildup, the texting, sometimes they'll be like, yeah. And I'm like playing with my pussy and eating your ass. And I'm going, what is happening here? Okay. So millennial women, if you guys know any of these women, can you tell me why they have such a fixation on analingus? I never had it done before. Now I think it's wonderful. I'm just saying that there's a lot of that going on. Are you looking at your woman right now? Is she just going like this? This is a horrible thing. Who are you looking at?
No, she's not in the same part of the house, thank God. But actually,
you've been tied up in a relationship for a while. I was not aware of this. Like I was not aware of this phenomenon. So I'm probably going to stay single for a little bit longer before looking for a relationship.
Do you think it's time for potentially a career change for you? Like maybe you become like this rim job aficionado. Maybe you like tutor people on the ins and outs, on the exacts.
Giving or getting?
I mean, look, I'm not going to judge what you're into and what you're not into, but yeah. I mean, you give them the whole spectrum, Write a
After
book.
shower. First of all, gotta take a shower.
Maybe.
Shower and like a real scrub. How awful has this show gotten at this point? This is why I saved it for the end. But I'm just saying, and also, Uncle T did not want to talk about this. If you're on the sports side, he's like, I'm not talking about this on the air. So I figured I'd save it for JJ, but JJ has no experience in it. So, whatever, dude. Whatever. I'm just saying.
I haven't dabbled in the great beyond. I haven't.
Yeah, I just feel like so many. I think it has to do with porn. I think a lot of these women watch porn and they've just normalized it at this point, And then they're also like, hey, what if I bring another guy into the situation? I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. One of these women, one of them asked me to pee on her. Are we going to get kicked off of YouTube? That was a hard no. I was like, I'm not doing that. It's not my thing. I'd probably get stage fright. Plus, I'm in my 40s, my prostate, all this stuff. It takes a while. You'd be sitting there for 15 minutes while I'm waiting. So, I had to get that off.
So that was the ending you guys requested.
We take this down. Take this video down after about an hour or two.
I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
I don't know. My next wife watches it, does not love rim jobs, and says, "What were you doing?" Or my daughter watches this in 20 years and she's just like, you're an old man. Why were you doing that?
F and Bob, I prefer them for just the first half. I think that Northern Iowa does a little better in the second half.
You're going to answer college basketball questions now after that?
I got to get myself back on track.
Okay. Real quick. Yes, I'll continue the sex segment every week at the end of the show, but only if we get 10 yeses here before the end. If we don't get 10 yeses, I'm done. You're not going to get this anymore. So the internet is forever, F and Bob. I'm just real about what happens in my life. I don't give a shit. I no longer am an upstanding member. I don't work for corporations anymore. I don't work for PBS or Entercom. I work for fucking Run Pure Sports. Okay. And, Run Pure CBS. No rim jobs, no blow jobs, no sex. Run Pure Bets. It all goes.
Yeah. So
we got a yes and nuggets.
Yeah. So stay tuned next week for Holden's description of his trip on a bidet, followed by a shower, and then he can give you more granular detail of the.
I don't think I'm going to have a great news story next week, but I do know for a fact the week after this there will be a great story. There will be a very good story. So next week I'm not guaranteeing anything. 2 weeks. Definitely going to be a great story.
Somebody asked a question about Seton Hall. Yeah, Robert, would be a very slight lean, just Seton Hall in the first half.
This is the best segment we've done, just you and me without your dad.
Team that can't close. Yeah, you're still trying to stay on late brand on the rim job stuff, and I'm just kind of answering questions. I'm just kind of answering basketball questions from the chat. Yeah, I prefer Hall for the first half there, Robert.
You guys got any single sisters out there? Hit me up at Holdenradio.
Okay,
you hate them.
Okay, everybody. Thank you.
Are we done?
Well, what else is there to talk about?
Eddie wants us to change this best bets and rim jobs. Real quick, and I know you want to get out of here, but I refuse to. So do you remember when you and I were talking? This is probably, I don't know, this is about at least a year ago. We were like, hey man, I think we'd have a fun show. We'd do a fun show together. I don't know if this is good or not. I just know that I have fun because nowhere else can I talk about, banging women. And he's just like, Seton Hall, great play. No, listen, I jizzed all over his stomach. Oh, Loyola, Chicago, wonderful play today.
Lay the points with Seton Hall in the first half.
Yeah. Where's the viewers? Did the viewers just cut down? 10,
yeah, they basically skyrocketed south, but it's okay. It was like,
now, JJ, take us out. Unless you got something else, more questions, but
no, we've covered a bunch of the games. Look, as always, I know we gave you a few different looks for today. As always,
we skipped Oral Roberts, but I think that was a bit. I think that was a bit.
Stay disciplined, gamble responsibly, and as always, folks, stay safe. Me and Holden will be back next week. Well, I'll give you hopefully some decent college basketball insight, and Holden can give you insight into his sex life.
Can you throw Wisconsin on the sheet for me? First half, -0.5.
Yeah.
At MGM.
Yeah, you got it.
I actually, this is like the most confident I felt in a college pick, I think today or in this season. To be honest with you, because now I got time to sit down and really dig in. Like when you're doing all the NFL stuff, NFL season just sucks you dry, man. It really.
I tell you what, you with all these sexual innuendos.
I didn't honestly, dude. I didn't even try. I didn't even try on that one. That was a faux pas.
You're just like merging the two effortlessly. It's actually.
You need some tips, Rod Z. He's not into it. He's not into that stuff. You need tips. You hit me up on Twitter. I'll give them to you. Giving, receiving, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So anyway, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for joining. We will see you all next week. As always, gamble responsibly, stay safe, and I'll be back with a few videos myself this week. All right, guys. I will see you all later this week.
Use a dental dam.